Do you have any familiarity with this character?
Of course not. Of course not. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, this is my first animated film. I was a fan of comics as a kid. I used to watch Super Friends when I was growing up, but there was no Professor Zoom back then. I mean, at least in my world, there wasn't. So, I just sort of lucked out. The filmmakers happened to catch an episode of Criminal Minds where I played the Reaper, and he thought, hey, he'd be a good bad guy. And, they came my way with it. Even though I haven't done a lot of animation, I've done a lot of acting, and there's some fundamental differences. I'm a real instinctual actor. I do a lot of work with my eyes and a lot of behavior and intention. And you can't really bring that stuff to the table when you're doing animated things. But, that being said, a lot of trust has to go into the animators and vice versa. You really set the precedence because you do the voice work first. They don't animate it first. So you do the voice work first, and they draw around you. And then, 8-9 months later, you come back and you fill in the holes, and you get to hear a lot of the things that you did, months ago. You get a second go around to make some improvements, and that's really where it all came together for me. And during the process, the first time through, you just try to do the best you can. The second time I came back, you really get to do the sculpting, and it's like building a house, pouring the foundation versus the fine cabinetry at the end, and that's what it's all about. So.
And how different was that? Because with theater you get the instant gratification.
Yeah.
How long ago did you record your voice, and it's just now coming out tomorrow?
And that's just it. I'm going to see it tonight in front of an audience, so I'll be able to answer this question a little better after that. But I've seen clips, and I'm really happy with the choices that I made. And the other characters are voiced by some really skilled people, and our voice director Andrea is the cream of the crop when it comes to this sort of thing. So I really trusted working with her, and she has great ideas, and I'm really hopeful, and I have high expectations. It's going to be really good.
When they came to you with Professor Jones, did they give you any kind of idea who he was, what he did? Did they even show you a picture, maybe an action figure?
Oh yeah. Well, I thank God for the internet. I jumped online right away and started doing a ton of research, and finding out what made him tick was extremely helpful. I mean, he's a broken man. He's resentful. He resents the fact that Howell never was injured, and he was basically given everything to him. And Zoom went through this process through some pretty heavy injuries. I mean, he was virtually paralyzed, and treadmill exploded on him, and he became who he became. And I think the real drive behind him is to is because he's basically a jealous guy, which is pretty weak motivation, but it tends to work for Zoom. So we don't get into that in the story so much, but that's really what drives him. I mean, when I got into the research, and my responsibility as a villain, just like all villains, is to make the good guys look better. And the better the bad guy, the better the good guy. And so I really embraced playing a villain. When I was 18 years old, I did a movie called The Hitcher with Howell. And I was a real fan of his work. I watched him play a lot of villains, and during one lunch session, we were just talking, and I asked him, Rutger, what's your secret? What makes you so great at playing bad guys? And while chewing on the end of a filterless Camel cigarette, he sort of leaned in and hissed, "I don't play bad guys." That rattled around in my head for 15, 20 years, and when I was sort of old enough to play these type of roles, I really embraced what that meant, and I started to look for the humanity, and I think when an audience watches a bad guy, that's really what they can relate to the most. And the Reaper, for example, when I played the bad guy in Criminal Minds, I get people coming up to me going, "Oh my God, you freaked me out in that," and that's not what I was going for on any level. I was really trying to play somebody who was rooted and grounded, and he's a sociopath, but he's not. I wasn't playing a sociopath. I was playing somebody who was very focused and dedicated, and not a horrible person, but somebody that was doing horrible things, and that tends to affect audiences on a much deeper level than if you're, Snidely Whiplash, twisting the mustache, and with the bad guy laugh. That didn't really seem to work for me, and so I didn't play that. And I brought that to this character. I just I tried to be as grounded as possible, and have a good time. And I wasn't. A lot of I'm just one instrument in this giant orchestra, so a lot of the responsibility is out of my hands. I just tried to find some nuances and really make the good guys look good.
You were my favorite part of Torchwood Miracle Day.
Oh wow, man.
I know it was
another bad guy.
Yeah, well, it was short. I know it wasn't. You weren't there for very long, but you were just so menacing and so badass. Of these different roles you've played, where you've come in and played heavies, which one are you most proud of?
Well, the Torchwood experience. I sort of thought they should have kept that dude around a little bit. What I loved about him, his character's name was just the Gentleman, and what I loved about him was, he was almost invisible, really, and I enjoyed that process. I enjoyed sort of showing up, materializing out of thin air virtually, but the Reaper character on Criminal Minds was really possibly the most effective character that I've been part of. A lot of people really hated him, and that was very satisfying. Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.